Hi Ninja Tech, my name is James Campbell, I'm 14 years old from California, and this is my video for the Ninja Tech Chinchilla 2021 filament project. My original idea was to make a pillow or a cushion, 3D printable and similar or built in the same idea of the purple mattress. You know, a mattress that uses foam in a grid pattern and compresses in on itself and is a mattress. So, yeah. But I quickly realized that TPU holds really rigid and it doesn't compress in on itself because it's not porous. Or essentially the resolution I came to is that I had to figure out a way to make compression out of flex. So it wouldn't technically really be compression, but it would, I guess, be fake compression using the flexible characteristics of TPU and TPE. So my original idea was to do hexagons because honeycomb's just like super cool looking and a very 3D printer reminiscent, I guess. And I did that, quickly realized that it didn't have a uniform compression, and it's kind of strange. Also, it doesn't compress in on itself, and that's where I realized that that was the case. After that, I went on with my next idea, which was to kind of work off this and use squares because they're uniform to compress it in, you know, instead of like that, instead of flat, in. So my first one was this, which is a prototype, and TPU takes a while to print, so I did a really small one. And, you know, once I realized that it was able to kind of compress on itself a little bit, I printed a full-size one, which was this. And, you know, it's not great, and it has kind of weird scaling and weird sizing, but, you know, it does compress, okay? And originally I wanted to have squares that compressed on each other, but that didn't work. But when I had, I originally had like a little square, and if you compressed it from the sides, like look at this, when you compress it square, it really doesn't like to compress. But when you compress it at an angle, and all of the squares are diamonds, which is essentially what this pattern is, you get really good compression. And that's what the whole thing is working off of, essentially. So, I'm going to get on to my next two designs, which were still in the prototyping TPU. This is before I actually even received Chinchilla. So, these ones are scaled more nicely, so they're still scaled down, but they're square. And I kind of wanted the pillows to be square. They weren't going to be like sleeping pillows, more like ones that you'd have on your couch. That's kind of the idea. So they're square. The thickness is a little bit more normal. And so the first one was this one, right? And holds itself really rigid. And just because I still hadn't received my Chinchilla, which, not that it took forever, I was just bored, but I printed this one, and out of all the TPU 95A ones, this is the most compressible. And I ended up using this for something on Chinchilla a little bit later, and I'll get to that soon. So now on to the actual fun ones, which is Chinchilla. First thing I did, same kind of little test thing. Still took a little bit of time, you know, so I really wanted to test it. This is when I realized that this was going to be really cool, because just compared to this one, so much more. Like, this one compresses almost on its own. So, first one I did, I just kind of went for it after I got a good bench sheet or two. And, yeah, I did a full-size one, and it failed. And I'm not really sad about that, because it was 14 hours, and if PLA failed, and it was 14 hours, I wouldn't be that surprised, honestly. It's not that weird. But it's so cool. I mean, not that I could use this or something, but I could still pitch something with this, and this is just awesome. But I did want a finished product to show you guys, and so I ended up doing this, and it was kind of based off the other design that I showed you, but it really almost like collapses in on itself. And I kind of knew that would happen, and so what I did was, because I have this keyboard that I built myself earlier this year, this little macro, I actually built this as an armrest for it, so that I could actually do that, and it makes it way more comfortable, and it works perfectly, and this is really never uncomfortable, like even the surface texture, whatever, so it works perfectly for that application. Yes, I had. The first one was for the ergonomics industry, which is already something that's has pretty good connections with 3D printing, you know, and especially with Chinchilla, you know, I've seen a lot of the stuff that's been printed with Chinchilla has been for prosthetics or other use cases that relate to ergonomics. And I really do think that that's one of the places it shines with the skin safe aspect and what have you. And so I figured that, you know, for people that are either disabled or are special needs, and, you know, are, you know, let's say that they're stuck in a chair all day, you know, having something like this, where you can have, you know, a nice cushion, right, which isn't the only part, because you could find a cushion in many places, but if you're able to combine that with 3D scanning, right, and CAD software, having to, you know, being able to have a cushion that perfectly matches the contour of someone's head or any body part, you know, could make their life so much better if that's where they're stuck all day, you know, if that's how they have to live, you know. Because 3D printing is also a really big prototyping for large-scale manufacturing, like injection molding. I guess injection molding is primarily it, but I was thinking that if you could mass produce these kinds of pillows, you know, or cushions or whatever, I guess you could probably make a full mattress, although that would be really big injection molding. You could pretty easily, as long as you have the equipment, mass produce these for pretty cheap once you have the injection molding resources and such. You know, you could probably find a plastic similar to Chinchilla for quite a bit cheaper, because it doesn't have to be 3D printable, which is, I think, the main thing that makes this so amazing. You know, and you could quickly mass produce large quantities of these and use them in tons of use cases. You know, we could use them in shelters all across the nation, let alone the world. You could use them for refugees, third world countries. Like, that would be a massive thing, you know, and of course that would take a lot more work to organize. But, once again, it's just an idea that was only really made possible and only made prototypable by Chinchilla.